Let's create a FumeFX with the right sides to be able to simulate the stuff there. So that's the base and that's the scale, but obviously we'll do it bigger, so we move it there because we don't need to simulate smoke there. And to be sure, we try to cover a bigger area. We have the particles flying up, so we go up 2, and we start with a lower scaling. Okay, let's go in the parameter to start setting the various value, and then I like to add also some object to control the simulation. Let's imagine that we have maybe some meshes too, and to simulate something like that, like let's imagine some trees. Let's see if we can use, for example, the foliage. Let's go for scorch pine. Okay, and we go to create this one. Okay, nice. Then we need to scale it, obviously. We have two ways, you can scatter this tree, or you can put it manually over the rock there. So we go for something really simple. So let's go for the orthographic. Let's remove the grid using the G key, and then we can zoom this area, and we can start imagining to put some trees. Maybe on this area. So going up, and then we can manually move it. So let's copy it. This one goes there. We can rotate it a little bit to have something different. It is a little bit bigger. It has a little bit different parameters. We have a new seed to have a different shape. Then again, we make a clone there. And this one too needs to stay down. A little bit of scaling less. And the same there too. So we are just trying to have some stuff inside the scene to have it a little bit more complex. You can have obviously a situation like that, and you can also change the mountain. You can do whatever else to have a nicer simulation, but I like to see what happens if we have some objects, like in this case, and how to simulate it. Then maybe we can see also if we have falling stuff, how we can manage it. So save, and back there. Let's go in a perspective, because it's not possible to see in real time in the viewport for FumeFX the simulation from the user, the orthographic view. So back there, and we have to create the object. So let's work with particle source, this one, and we have to pick the particles. So we can pick the one, and then we can pick the third, and then we can pick the number 2. Okay, so if we go to see there the particles flying away, we can go in the particle system. So let's pick PFlow 1, and we can have sorry, I'm scaling the viewport there, and we can have all the particles set as dots. And remember that we don't need those particles to be renderable, so we can remove the renderable, so the particles will be just used in viewport. Okay, so now we are seeing the scale for the particles inside our scene. If we go, it is going a little bit slow. If we go to select the PFlow, we can check there the radius actually is 1. We can have a little bit less if needed. We can tweak it later. I like to have a lot of variation, so we can go to 0.5 actually, and actually we are using the speed as set to 1, and I'm not managing too much value there. The most important thing is that we are not simulating explosion with fire, so just dust and smoke. We can go lower there for the maximum iteration to speed up the simulation, and we have set everything. We can go lower to the spacing to have something more visible. We have the simulation before starting from 0 to 100 actually, just to see how it looks. So if we go to simulate, we should have something really bad. So let's see what happened. You see that we have the smoke there simulated, and then it is falling down and going through the mountain. So actually we have no collision, we have nothing. So I like to start doing something. First of all, we need to have a little bit maybe less particles. We can tune it later, or maybe we can do something actually. So let's cancel there, because you see it is going a little bit slow with all the spawned particles, sorry. Okay, so back to the particle system, so we can tune a little bit. You see it is going really slow. Let's close there. Sorry, cancel. Okay. First of all, we go there and we say that we don't like to see the particles in viewport, so we can speed up everything. Then we go inside the particles and let's check the spawning. Let's say that there the step is 2, there is 2.5, and there is 3. I like to see this particle system to understand if it is doing what I like to do. So let's have more speed there. Okay, and the gravity will be a little bit less. I like to create a little bit of something like an explosion. So let's see. I need to speed up. Let's go for 250 and 150. Okay, so you see that it's exploding and then it starts to fall down. Let's give it a little bit more time. In the particles. So those particles will die a little bit later, and let's see with all particles what happened. Okay, let's give there maybe 4, 5. Okay, let's give more point where the particles are generated. So let's go for 35. and maybe we need more particles. So I'm tuning just the first particles, so let's move it there. Let's see with more particles what happen. Okay, and I like to tune just this particle to understand how it is working with the FumeFX. So let's pick FumeFX, and we can go to simulate just this particle system to see what happened. You see that it is simulating something like an explosion. Obviously the quality is really low because we are using a really low value, but it is nice. Okay, and then the dust is moving up. Let's see with just the first one and the second one. And let's see in the viewport. Okay, we have something like particles going up, and then we have the particles flying down. Okay. The first part obviously is much slower because we have more particles. So I like to add back all the particles to see all together what happened. Back there and save. And let's simulate some frames so we can see the result together. So let's see the frame we just simulated. You see that we have there the particles flying away, we have a little bit of explosion, and we have the particles falling down. I think we can have an higher speed at the beginning to have something more like an explosion. So this one is enough, but the particles needs to going up a little bit. Then the particles goes down, and then we have just the dust rising up. So now we have to adjust a little bit the particles, and then we have also to drive the fluid simulation to move down and have a collision with the mountain and generate the avalanche. So now we have to trick the particle system. So let's go back to the particle system, so we can select the PFsource 1 and open the view, and let's see. Okay, that's the tricks blue there, and let's redouble check. Okay, we can start tuning some parameters on the simulation there. So first of all, let's restart to work with the various particles. So let's pick the first one, and I like to tune the explosion one to understand if we are going in the right way. So let's simulate some frames. Okay, perfect. So let's pick the particles, the number third particle setup, this one. Let's say that the speed is a little bit more, so let's try with 320 and 200. So you see that it's moving faster. And let's say that we have more particles and we have more place. So let's try with 80. and maybe we can kill the particles before, so it will stay really not so much frames, just to give the direction to the particles. Let's see what happened there. Inside the simulation you see that we have something like that. Okay, so cancel, and let's try to have more particles. Let's go for 450, and again back to the particles, to the FumeFX. Okay, you see that we have more detail. So what we are obtaining is something like that. You see that we have this kind of explosion. Okay, so I like to tune also the some various parameters there. And the first thing I like to do is to change the gravity. We'll have less gravity. Let's go to 0.5. Having less gravity will give us less dynamic to you see the growing up of the particles, because we are generating a different way of simulation. So for example, we can decide that the smoke there is not bad, and to do something like that we can decide to have still less gravity. Let's try with 0.25. Let's recheck. So you see we have this kind of explosion, and you see that then the smoke is rising up just a little bit, not so much. So it is going not so fast up. Okay, perfect. And sorry, and another thing we can do is to have a lower value for the buoyancy, and this way we are saying that the dust is trying to go down and not to rise up. So let's see. So in this case we are trying to simulate this kind of smoke staying in the air and then flying away step by step. You see I'm rising up just a little bit. Maybe now we can have a different shape for the gizmo there, and to do something like that we can clone this FumeFX, and this one will be the dust hair, and it is a copy. Okay, so we can continue working just on the dust air, and something that we can start to do is to have an higher resolution to start simulating something more interesting. And this one will obviously save the simulation with a different name. Let's call it hair, and save. So then we can add also a little bit of turbulence, but first of all I like to have an higher vorticity, and we can go to have a little bit of turbulence, and the turbulence will be obviously really not so big. Let's say maybe 3, and it will be 5 for the frames, and we'll have enough detail. If we go to simulate, obviously the scaling and the resolution is still really low, but you see that we are starting to create something without also a noise, and then it is starting to grow up and rise in the air with also the dust. Okay, nice. Let's stop. Then we have this one selected, and we can write something in the script there, something like string system scale, and let's scale it to 0.1. So in this case we are saying that the entire system scale is just 10%, and in this way we are saying to FumeFX to create more details, tiny details, and we are doing something that will be really useful to obtain a nice looking B-scale simulation. If we go to simulate, you see that now the look is different than before because the scaling is different. So we are achieving a different density and a different value for the details. So this will be the explosion, and to solve the different value we are setting there, we can first of all go in there and say that the this emitter, the particle flow source 1, let's select it. Okay, and this one can be renamed as air. Okay, let's clone it, and this one is the normal one. The normal one will have the third particles, but if we go to select the air one, we have the 1 and the 2 particles. Then let's go to select the dust air FumeFX, and we can have it higher because we have to focus to have also some cover there. We can scale just a little bit less this one, and this can be also more little on the scale, and it should be more little. Okay, and save. Let's see what happens if we go to simulate. Okay, you see that we have the particle explosion, and then we have the variation there on the particles. Okay, stop. And I like to add the mountain as collision object, and we'll try to have a really fast simulation. So this is a solid, and we'll try to have a speed up when the smoke collide with the surface. So let's say maybe 10. In this case, when the dust collide with the mountain, it has an acceleration, so the dust will move faster. And this one, it will be not so simple to see, but it will be really nice when we are simulating the other dust using the other particle system. Okay, let's rotate. Nice. Something that can be done is also to let's see, later we can add some collision object for these meshes. And then if we go back to this one, we can go in the particles, and we can set back to on the particle 1 and 2. Back on this one, we remove, sorry, that's the air, and that's right. Let's go on the other one. This one is not the air, but we are using the normal one. Okay, nice. Let's open the preview and let's simulate. Okay, it is done. Let's see what we have. We have the particles flying away, and then we have the particles falling down, and that's all. But I like to do something different. So at the beginning, I like to have more rising of the particle, and we can do, we have to remove this one. Okay, there we can say to use different value for the particles. So we have not so big scale there. We have a different for the variation for the radius. Let's say that we have a higher speed with 70%. Sorry. A 70% variation for the particle speed, and then we have also the amount of smoke with a lot of variation, let's say to under 50, and that's all for the moment. So let's see with the new speed what we are achieving. Okay, let's see what happened now. We have it more chaotic like than before. Then we have a huge speed up there. So what do we have to do? We have to change the parameters there for the particles. So what we like to do is to have, let's say that we have less gravity. Let's try with 350 and 350. And I like to have more speed at the beginning. And let's go there. Let's say 180 and 120. So let's check. The particles are growing up and then are growing down. Okay, we can make another test to see if it is going in the right way. Sorry, that's the wrong one. We need the other one. Okay, so let's see. We have, you see, more speed at the beginning. Then we have the smoke falling down. And I have something to say. So first of all, let's remove, we have a nice gravity there. Let's remove a little bit of speed from there. Let's say 2.5. Then let's see there in the simulation how much buoyancy we have. Let's say that we can have -1 at the beginning, and then we can animate it. So let's close. We have still -1. Let's say that we have -1 until there, and then we have something like -5 when we stay there. So we have -1, and then it is growing up. Okay, let's add the collision with the ground there. The mountain is a solid, and let's say that actually we have no speed multiplier. Save, and we can see something. Okay, it is blocked by the mountain, but you see that it's still rising too much. So let's go in the simulation, and first of all I like to have lower adventure stride. This one will give less or small or more dissipation, and in this case I like to have less, and then we go to have also let's say lower time scale, and in this case we'll go to simulate a bigger moving smoke, and we have more vorticity, and the turbulence is similar to the other one. Let's say 25, but this time the scaling is lower. Let's say maybe 1.5, or maybe let's go for 2, and the frames is low as 5, and the detail is obviously 5. Then I like to change the animation there over the dust, and I don't want to have so much dissipation, so let's go for 0.01, and the sorry, (0.01). Okay, the smoke buoyancy, I like to, let's move to the next key and then to the next one. Okay, this one is we have 5. I like to go to a really low amount. Let's try with 30 and set to off. and then we can have a speed up when the mountain is colliding. And in this speed up, this time we can be really high. Let's try with 15 and save, and let's simulate some frames. Okay, let's check. I think we have to tune up a little bit the particle animation, so I like to change something. Let's see from this point of view. Okay, you see that the particles are going there. I like to have maybe a little bit less rising up, so we need a little bit less speed. Let's go back to 160 with maybe 120 about the variation, and there 135 with 95, so it is lower, but we say to the fluid to have an higher speed multiplier. So let's try with 4 and back to a more stable visualization, but I like to see the particles. So you see that the particles are growing down, and maybe they need to stay alive for maybe just 2 more frames, and same there. So we have the particles rising up and then falling down, and we can have a little bit less spawning, and the same there to have less particles. Okay, back to the fluid and save, and let's see what happened in this case.